There comes a moment in every life when the loudest voice in the room is not someone else's. It is the echo of every opinion we have collected and carried as if it were our own. We spend years learning how to be accepted, admired, understood, and approved of, until one day we realize we have become strangers to ourselves. We measure our dreams against the expectations of people who will never have to live with the consequences of our choices. We shrink our joy so others feel comfortable. We silence our truth so no one feels challenged. We become careful instead of courageous. But what if the freedom you have been searching for has never been waiting on applause? What if the life you were meant to build begins the very moment you stop asking the world for permission? There is a quiet strength that grows inside a person who no longer needs every decision to be explained, defended, or celebrated. It is the strength of someone who understands that opinions are plentiful, but wisdom is rare. Not every voice deserves a place in your mind, and not every judgment deserves a place in your heart. The world has always been generous with advice, generous with criticism, and even more generous with doubt. People will tell you who you should become based on the limits of their own imagination. They will confuse your confidence for arrogance, your silence for weakness, and your independence for rebellion. Yet, none of those opinions can define you unless you hand them the authority to do so. The greatest prison is not built from walls. It is built from the fear of disappointing people whose approval can never truly satisfy. Today, we are not gathered to learn how to win everyone's admiration. That battle has no finish line. We are here to discover something far more valuable: the hidden power that comes from releasing the weight of other people's expectations. Because the moment you stop living for the audience, you finally step onto the stage of your own life. And when your choices begin to rise from conviction instead of comparison, something remarkable happens. Your peace becomes harder to steal. Your purpose becomes clearer. Your voice becomes steadier. The world may continue to speak, but it no longer decides who you are. That is where genuine freedom begins, and that is the journey we begin together today. From the moment we are old enough to understand praise and criticism, we begin collecting invisible mirrors. We look into the faces of parents, teachers, friends, co-workers, and even strangers, hoping they will reflect back a version of ourselves that feels worthy. At first, this seems harmless. After all, human beings are made for connection, and caring about one another's thoughts is part of living together. But somewhere along the way, a quiet shift occurs. We stop using other people's opinions as information and start treating them as instructions. Their approval becomes the compass that points us toward every decision, every dream, and every risk we are willing or unwilling to take. This influence is rarely dramatic. It does not arrive with loud commands or visible chains. Instead, it whispers her. It asks whether you should wear something different because someone might judge you. It convinces you not to speak during an important meeting because your idea might sound foolish. It encourages you to abandon a passion because it does not seem practical enough to impress others. Little by little, these whispers accumulate until they become the soundtrack of your life. What once felt like your own voice slowly becomes an echo of everyone else's expectations. The remarkable thing about opinions is that they often reveal more about the person expressing them than the person receiving them. Every individual sees the world through the lens of personal experiences, fears, successes, disappointments, and beliefs. Someone who gave up on a dream may tell you that your dream is unrealistic. Someone who fears change may call your courage reckless. Someone who values security above all else may struggle to understand your desire for adventure. Their perspective is shaped by their journey, not yours. Yet we often accept these borrowed conclusions as though they were universal truths. Modern life magnifies this problem in ways previous generations could scarcely imagine. Every scroll through social media exposes us to endless judgments, disguised as comments, likes, shares, and trends. Success appears measured by numbers instead of fulfillment. People compare their private struggles with carefully edited moments from someone else's public life. In this environment, it becomes dangerously easy to believe that our worth depends on how many people approve of our choices. We begin performing instead of living, presenting instead of becoming. Our attention shifts away from what feels meaningful and toward what appears acceptable. The cost of this habit is profound. When we allow outside opinions to quietly shape our identity, we lose touch with our inner compass. Decisions become exhausting because every choice must survive an imaginary courtroom filled with invisible critics. Creativity fades because originality always risks misunderstanding. Confidence weakens because it is built on changing reactions rather than steady conviction. Instead of asking, "What matters most to me?" we repeatedly ask, "What will people think?" That single question has persuaded countless people to remain in unfulfilling careers, silent relationships, abandoned ambitions, and lives that feel safe on the outside but empty within. Freedom begins with recognizing this invisible influence. It begins with noticing how often we pause before acting, not because something is wrong, but because we fear being misunderstood. Awareness does not require us to reject every opinion. Wise counsel remains valuable, constructive criticism remains necessary, and honest feedback can help us grow. The challenge is learning the difference between guidance that strengthens our character and judgment that shrinks our spirit. Once we understand that distinction, we stop giving every passing opinion equal authority. We begin listening with discernment instead of dependence, allowing our values, not the changing voices around us, to become the foundation upon which every meaningful decision is made. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from living for approval. It is not the kind of fatigue that sleep can cure, nor the kind that disappears after a vacation. It settles deep within the heart because it demands constant performance. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to impress. Every decision is filtered through the imagined reactions of others. Every achievement feels incomplete unless it is recognized and applauded. A person trapped in this cycle may appear successful from the outside, yet inside they carry the heavy burden of wondering whether they are enough. The search for approval has no final destination because the standards of the world are always changing, and the opinions of people are as unpredictable as the weather. Many of us believe that if enough people approve of us, we will finally feel secure. We imagine that acceptance will erase our doubts and quiet our fears. Yet approval is a fragile foundation on which to build a life. The same voices that praise you today may criticize you tomorrow. The crowd is rarely consistent because it responds to trends, emotions, and personal preferences that shift with time. If your confidence depends on those changing opinions, then your peace will change with them. You become emotionally dependent on something you can never fully control. Real freedom begins the moment you understand that your value does not increase when someone applauds you, nor does it decrease when someone misunderstands you. Your character, your purpose, and your integrity are not determined by public opinion. They are formed in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose honesty over convenience, courage over comfort, and conviction over popularity. These are the moments that shape a meaningful life, even if they never receive recognition. Letting go of the need for constant approval does not mean becoming indifferent or arrogant. It does not mean refusing advice or pretending that relationships no longer matter. Instead, it means learning to separate your identity from other people's reactions. You can appreciate encouragement without becoming dependent on it. You can receive criticism without allowing it to define your worth. You can listen with an open mind while keeping your own conscience as the final guide. This emotional freedom transforms the way you experience life. You begin making choices because they align with your values rather than because they guarantee acceptance. You discover that saying no becomes easier when your goal is authenticity instead of popularity. You stop apologizing for dreams that make sense only to you. You no longer feel obligated to explain every decision to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. Instead of spending your energy managing everyone's expectations, you invest it in becoming the person you were meant to be. As this freedom grows, something remarkable happens within you. Fear loses much of its influence because it no longer controls your decisions. Comparison begins to fade because you recognize that every life follows a different path. Jealousy weakens because your focus shifts from competing with others to developing your own gifts. Even failure becomes less frightening because you understand that making an honest mistake while following your convictions is far more meaningful than achieving success by abandoning yourself. The greatest reward of releasing the need for approval is not that life becomes easier. People may still question your choices, criticize your direction, or misunderstand your intentions. The difference is that their opinions no longer possess the power to determine your emotional state. Your peace begins to come from within rather than from the unpredictable approval of the world, allowing you to move forward with quiet confidence, genuine purpose, and an unshakable trust in the path you have chosen to walk. One of the greatest lessons a person can learn is that not every voice deserves the same level of influence. We often hear the phrase, listen to others, as though every opinion carries equal value. Yet, wisdom and judgment are not the same thing. Wisdom seeks to help you grow, while judgment often seeks to measure, compare, or control you. Learning to recognize the difference is essential if you want to live with confidence instead of confusion. Without this understanding, you may reject advice that could transform your life while embracing criticism that quietly weakens your spirit. Wise counsel is rooted in care rather than control. It comes from people who want to see you become the best version of yourself, not the version that makes them feel comfortable. These individuals may challenge your thinking, point out your blind spots, or encourage you to improve, but they do so with respect and honesty. Their words are not designed to diminish your confidence, but to strengthen your character. They are willing to tell you difficult truths because they value your growth more than your temporary comfort. Wisdom does not flatter simply to be liked, nor does it criticize simply to feel superior. It speaks with humility and leaves room for your own choices. Judgment, on the other hand, often arrives wearing the disguise of concern. It may sound convincing because it is spoken with certainty, but beneath the surface it is frequently shaped by personal bias, insecurity, or fear. Judgment assumes it already knows who you are and what you should become. It places labels where there should be curiosity and conclusions where there should be understanding. Instead of asking questions, it makes assumptions. Instead of offering guidance, it imposes expectations. The person passing judgment may not even realize they are doing it because they are viewing your life through the narrow lens of their own experiences. Consider how often people discourage others simply because they cannot imagine a different path. Someone who has always chosen safety may criticize your willingness to take a risk. Someone who values tradition above all else may question your desire to create something new. Someone who once failed may project that disappointment onto your future. None of these opinions necessarily reflect reality. They reflect the limits of the speaker's perspective. If you mistake those judgments for wisdom, you may spend years avoiding opportunities that were meant for you. The ability to distinguish wisdom from judgment requires self-awareness. Before accepting someone's opinion, it is worth asking a few quiet questions. Does this advice encourage growth or merely demand conformity? Is it based on genuine understanding or quick assumptions? Does it inspire courage, responsibility, and integrity, or does it awaken unnecessary fear and self-doubt? Most importantly, does it align with the values you are committed to living by? These questions create space between hearing a voice and surrendering to it. There is also great strength in recognizing that even wise advice does not remove your responsibility to choose. No mentor, friend, family member, or expert can live your life for you. They can offer perspective, but they cannot carry the consequences of your decisions. That responsibility belongs to you alone. Listening carefully is a sign of maturity, but blindly following every opinion is not. Real maturity lies in weighing what you hear against your own principles, experience, and purpose. When you master this distinction, your life becomes less crowded by unnecessary noise. You stop reacting to every criticism as though it were truth, and you stop chasing every compliment as though it were proof of your worth. Instead, you develop a quiet confidence that welcomes genuine wisdom while calmly releasing empty judgment, allowing your decisions to be guided by clarity, integrity, and a deeply rooted trust in the person you are becoming. There is a kind of strength that never announces itself. It does not compete for attention, raise its voice to prove a point, or constantly seek recognition. It moves quietly, steadily, and with purpose. This strength is built on silence, confidence, and self-trust. In a world where people often feel pressured to explain every decision, defend every action, and respond to every criticism, choosing silence can seem unusual. Yet silence is not a sign of weakness. Often it is the clearest evidence that a person no longer depends on the approval of others to validate who they are. Many people believe confidence is loud. They imagine it as bold speeches, constant self-promotion, or the ability to dominate every conversation. But genuine confidence rarely behaves that way. A truly confident person does not feel compelled to win every argument or correct every misunderstanding. They understand that not every opinion deserves a response, and not every accusation requires a defense. Their sense of identity is rooted in something deeper than public perception. Because they know who they are not easily shaken by what others assume about them. Silence becomes powerful because it creates space between emotion and reaction. When someone criticizes you unfairly, the natural instinct is often to defend yourself immediately. You want to explain your intentions, justify your choices, and convince others that they are mistaken. Yet every reaction gives additional energy to the very opinion that disturbed your peace. Silence interrupts this cycle. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. It protects your dignity by refusing to let every passing comment dictate your behavior. Sometimes the strongest response is not a clever argument, but the quiet confidence to continue living according to your values. Self-trust grows from repeated acts of honesty with yourself. It is built every time you keep a promise you made to yourself, every time you choose integrity over convenience, and every time you remain faithful to your principles even when no one is watching. Unlike confidence that depends on applause, self-trust cannot be taken away by criticism. It becomes an inner foundation that supports you through uncertainty, failure, and misunderstanding. When you trust your own judgment, the opinions of others become pieces of information rather than commands that control your direction. This does not mean you become stubborn or refuse to learn. In fact, people who trust themselves are often more open to feedback because they do not experience every suggestion as a threat to their identity. They can calmly evaluate advice, accept what is useful, and release what is not. Their confidence allows them to admit mistakes without feeling diminished. They understand that growth and humility are not enemies of strength, but companions to it. As silence, confidence, and self-trust grow together, they begin to reshape every area of life. Relationships become healthier because they are no longer driven by the desperate need to be understood at all times. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by values instead of fear. Challenges become easier to face because success is measured by faithfulness to purpose rather than by public approval. Even criticism loses much of its power because it is no longer interpreted as a verdict on personal worth. The world will always have opinions. Some will praise you, others will question you, and many will misunderstand you completely. If you spend your life chasing every compliment and resisting every criticism, your energy will belong to everyone except yourself. But when your confidence is rooted in self-trust and protected by thoughtful silence, you discover a freedom that cannot be given by applause or taken away by judgment, allowing you to move through life with calm assurance, quiet resilience, and an unwavering commitment to the person you know yourself to be the greatest transformation in a person's life rarely begins with a dramatic event. More often, it starts with a quiet decision, a decision to stop allowing other people's expectations to determine the direction of your future. There is extraordinary power in choosing your own path, even when that path is misunderstood. It is not the power of rebellion for its own sake, nor the desire to prove others wrong. It is the quiet courage of recognizing that your life was never meant to be a copy of someone else's vision. The moment you embrace this truth, you begin to reclaim a part of yourself that may have been hidden beneath years of comparison, approval-seeking, and unnecessary doubt. Every person carries a unique combination of talents, experiences, values, and dreams. No two journeys are exactly alike, yet society often encourages us to follow familiar patterns. We are told which careers are respectable, which milestones define success, and which lifestyles deserve admiration. While these expectations may offer guidance, they can also become invisible fences that limit our imagination. Many people spend years climbing ladders they never wanted to climb simply because everyone around them insisted that success could only be found at the top. Only after reaching those heights do they discover that fulfillment cannot be borrowed from someone else's definition of happiness. Choosing your own path requires courage because certainty is never guaranteed. There will always be voices predicting failure, questioning your decisions, or reminding you of every possible risk. Some people will genuinely believe they are protecting you, while others may criticize you because your courage exposes the fears they have never confronted in themselves. If you wait until everyone agrees with your direction, you may never begin the journey at all. Progress has always belonged to those who were willing to move forward despite uncertainty, trusting that clarity often appears only after the first step has been taken. This hidden power is not measured by outward achievements alone. It reveals itself in the peace that comes from living honestly. When your daily actions reflect your deepest values, there is less conflict within you. You no longer wake each morning trying to become the person everyone expects. Instead, you focus on becoming the person you know you are capable of being. That inner alignment creates a quiet confidence that no amount of external praise can replace. You stop competing with other people's timelines because you understand that your purpose cannot be rushed by comparison. There will still be setbacks. Every meaningful journey includes moments of uncertainty, disappointment, and unexpected obstacles. Choosing your own path does not protect you from failure, but it changes the meaning of failure itself. Mistakes become lessons rather than permanent labels. Challenges become opportunities to grow stronger instead of reasons to abandon your vision. Because your motivation comes from within, temporary defeats lose their power to define your future. You recognize that a life built on authenticity is far more rewarding than one built on constant approval. Perhaps the most beautiful result of following your own path is the example it sets for others. Without preaching or persuading, you quietly give people permission to live more honestly themselves. Your courage reminds them that fulfillment is not found in pleasing every observer, but in remaining faithful to what truly matters. Authenticity has a way of spreading, inspiring others to question the unnecessary burdens they have carried for years. In choosing freedom for yourself, you become a silent invitation for others to discover their own. Life is too precious to spend performing for an audience whose opinions change with every passing season. The years move forward whether you are living according to your convictions or someone else's expectations. When you finally release the need to fit every mold and satisfy every voice, you uncover a strength that has been within you all along, a strength that allows you to walk with purpose, embrace uncertainty with courage, and create a life defined not by the approval of the crowd, but by the quiet certainty that you have remained true to yourself